So this little guy is not too hard. It's going to feel very bluesy. And it's going to be starting on the high E on the ninth fret and just slides to the 10. And then you're going to skip a string and you're going to go to the 13 to the 12 to the 10 on the G string, and you're just going to pull them all off. And then you're going to hit that 12th fret on the G string and pull it off again. So, and it's going to finish on the 13th, I'm sorry, on the 11th fret of the B string. So, I'm not double tapping, I'm sorry. So it's like a, so just work that phrase out until you've got it. So 9, 10 on the high E, 13, 12, 10, and then 12, 10, and then finish on the 11th fret on the B string. So it's bim, ba-da-da, bim, dum, bum, ba-da-da, bim, dum, bum, bim, ba-da-da, bim, dum, bum. Okay, so just work that section out and we'll go to the next one. This is one of the cooler parts, but it actually has a little bit of a trick. You got to kind of string skip, or, you know, kind of deal with one of those things, so it's not as easy to pick to get it clean. So what I ended up doing is palm muting it just a little bit, and also you're going to do, so let me show you where it's coming from. So what I do from there, since you're ending on this, I bar these two strings, which is the B and the G string, and I just do a hammer-on pull-off from the 10 to the 11 on the B, and if you know, obviously because they can ring together, but you want them to be separated, you've got to kind of palm mute them and try to separate them a little bit. So it's going to take a little bit of technique on your part to kind of get that. And if it's sloppy in the beginning, and you just work it out and you just kind of clean it up as you go. But it's just, and so it's a chord. Okay. So that's the lick. So it's a it's a 10, 11, 10, then 10 on the G string, 12 on the D string, and then back up to the 10 on the G. So it's like this. Okay, so that's the whole lick. So it's really just kind of... So this is where the lick actually gets a little bit tricky and kind of cool and bluesy. Okay, so you stop on the G. And so this little thing right here is where you're going to bend just a half step, almost quarter step, just to get a little bit of an inflection. But it's going to be on the 13th fret on the B string. So it's kind of one of those slides, but it's mostly just a slight little bend there, just to get it bluesy. Not a full bend, so do a half step. So the whole lick like this. So when you finish on that G string right there, do the bend on the 13th fret on the B. Finish on the 10th fret on the high E string. So the whole two parts together. It's up to speed. Well, let me put... So that part needs to be worked out, those two things together. So once you get that, and you'll realize once it starts getting faster how staccato you got to get that to get it really clean. But that's a cool section. And then we've got this next little thing that's even harder. Welcome to that one. Okay, so this one is a continuation of that same phrase. And it's really going to go, we ended on the D note, which is the 10th fret of the E string. And so what you're going to do is just kind of a little pentatonic thing. So you're in the 13th, and you basically play 13th on the B to the 10 on the E, and then what you're going to do is string skip, and you're going to go 13, 12, 10, and just pull them all off. And then you're going to go back to the 12 and double and pull off. So. So that's that first part, and then this is going to be a little weird, but you're going to, while you're on that there, you're going to go down to the D on the 12th fret on the D, and then back to the G, then you're going to go to the 11th fret on the D, alright, so that whole thing is getting there like this, okay, when you're there, you're going to slide back up. So, okay, it's a little strange, but it'll finish nice. So that little part right there, if you just separate it, it'll make more sense. So it's just an 11 to 12 on the D string, and then back to the 10th fret on the G string, and finish with the pinky on the 13th fret on the high E. So it's just in octaves. So it's not a really hard lick when you do it like that, but so that whole thing. Finish it off, you're going to do a 11 to 13, just hammer on the high E string, and then you're going to use your middle finger to slide to the 15 on the B, to the 13th, so it's kind of a that whole thing again. Okay, so that's that section. Work that one out. All right, hope you're ready to rock this one. Okay, this one is going to be pretty quick, and it's going to have a lot of details. This is something that took a long time for me to grasp, but anyways, here's the lick. Gonna like just walk up, and it's basically starts off with the D string, or I'm sorry, the 10th fret on the B string and the 13th fret on the E string, and it basically just does this little kind of chromatic 10, 11, 12, and then what you do is release the ring finger to where you're still on the 11th fret, and what you're going to do is bend while you've got that. So he's doing a little double stop there. And it pulls off. Okay? And that's all that is. It's a rhythmic type thing. Okay? And so what I'm doing right there is just 11, 10 on the B to the 12th fret on the G. And that's all that really is. So you can keep this pinky there the entire time for that first part of the lick, and it gives it a little bit of character. Okay? So I would say work that part out, and it'll make a lot of sense to get that right first. And I've seen this in a couple of times, and I actually do it myself just to kind of keep the rhythm. But I actually do a kind of a down, up, and then play that. I think it sounds pretty cool. It may be in the album, it may not be. I saw somebody else do it, and I just kind of liked it. So once you've got that part, we'll go to the next section. Okay, so this little guy is right after this. So if you finish right there, kind of think of this next lick, which is really start. You're going to start on the 11th, and it's going to be kind of like a sweep where you're down, down. So if you do it from the 11th on the B string to the 10th on the E string. Okay? And then it goes to the 13th fret on the high E string. So it's a little triad thing. Now, the trick with this is since you're doing a down, down, up, this is where you've got to kind of do a double hit on this, and it's going to be really tricky in the beginning for you guys to get it. If it just doesn't make sense now, it's going to be a little goofy. But you've got to kind of it's like a double, and then it's a pull off. So it feels like. So you'll see what I mean by. Alright. So it's just basically a pull off from the 13 to the 10, or to the 13, 12, 11, and then 10. But it also doesn't sound like this. Again, it's got that swing groove. And the reason that you got to get it like this is because it's got to tie into the rest of the phrase. Trust me, it'll make sense at full speed. All right, so the next part. Once you get down to that note, you're going to do basically like a little arpeggio, which is basically from the 10 to the 11th on the B to the G, 12th fret, and then just pull off from the 12th to the 11 to the 10. So. Nope, sorry, wrong phrase. That out that far. Just get down to there. Okay, we'll stop and go to the next section. This part's pretty easy since we've just done the. Once you got down to the 10th fret, all you can do is use your ring finger on the 13th fret on the D string, and then you hit the note on the 10th fret on the G string again. Then you're going to hit the 12th fret on the D string, but this is going to slide up to the 14th fret. So the whole phrase is. So it's like a. Dun, dun, dun. It's kind of a cool little. That's going to put you in a whole different position for the next lick. So from here. Oops. And how you get there is really up to you, whatever's most comfortable for you. So in some cases, my fingers will choose to do the ring finger, maybe sometimes because I'm just doing it slow. So I gotta play it fast. Actually, I just use the middle finger when I'm playing it fast. It just happens where when I get to this, I do a kind of a big stretch all the way from the 14th to the 10, or God, bad with numbers today, 13th to the 10. And then since I'm kind of already there, I'm just backing up to that 12 and then sliding up to that 14. So when you do Alright, so where we're continuing from here is basically from the... So for once you're at the 14th fret on the D string, you're going to go to... So it just basically hits the 14th again, and then you hit the 12th fret on the G string, and then you just walk from the 14th to the 15th on the D. So it's just very simple lick, okay? But it starts to get a little complicated here because of the picking and the sweep that comes up. Oops. It's not a particularly hard thing to do, so just learn it right now so you can understand how to get to it. But it's just, it's a 14, 13, 12, just a very simple arpeggio. And then, so once you sweep it, it goes to the 15th on the He. And then you can kind of pull it off to the 13th fret. Okay, so when it does this, oops. Now, that seems like it'd be pretty easy to do when you're doing it slowly, but I can tell you right now, that is one of the trickiest parts to get down. So when you get to the... Oops. The problem is when you get to that and you start moving around with the pick, you'll end up being in a position where you're doing an upstroke, but you need to be doing a downstroke because of where you are, and you won't be able to sweep that because your hand's in an up position. So what I've done is double hit certain notes. So when I do like maybe an upstroke here, it starts off as an upstroke, or maybe a down here, and then an upstroke, and then another downstroke to sweep. Now it sounds very confusing, but it makes sense once you get the groove down. So I'll try to break it down as much as I can. So you got the, once you start this part, and then you do it, so it's downstroke, up, down, up. So it's a double hit. And then when you get to this, you can sweep it straight down, 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 up, down, pull off. So. Different there, where I double tap the 14th fret on the G. Again, it's really going to be how you're going to connect with this lick. It's a very tricky one. But I can play this 1,000 times, and it just kind of randomizes itself. So. So that's the cleanest way to get it. The last part of this is pretty simple, but we'll kind of break that down in a little section.